Okay, we are in Yaakov. Please subscribe to the channel. Give it a thumbs up. And also comment. The more you do for this, the higher it goes in your ratings, and then you'll never miss a class. Okay, so we're on 2b1, and it says the Gemara discusses Balsamol in a different context. It says, Reish Shemanim Yim Shachu. The Torah says, or it says in Amod, when the prophet rebukes the people for ignoring prophecies of retribution and continuing instead to indulge in luxuries, that they anoint themselves with the finest oils. Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Shmuel. So Rav Yehuda, some name is Shmuel. Zeh Playaton. This refers to balsam. Fine. Some native Rav Yosef objected to it on the basis of the following Braita that's found in Sota, which lists practices that were banned because of the temple's destruction. And he explains that the sages banned certain joyful practices in order to impress upon the people the gravity of the tragedy that had befallen them. And I think we discussed some of this last week. So he says, Af al Paleaton goes Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava. So even against balsam did Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava decree. But the sages did not agree with him. V'amrat mishum tanug. Now if you say that the aforementioned verse refers to balsam, and hence it is evident that balsam is used for the purposes of pleasure, Amailo hodulo, why did the sages not agree with Rabbi Yehuda ben Batera, who banned the use of balsam? So he said,
it's a form of oil.
Yeah, and he says for the verse enumerates the luxuries in which the people indulged at that time, and Rav Yosef assumes that all the activities listed in that passage should be forbidden on account of the temple's destruction, since Scripture now recognizes them as luxuries. So the point is that when the temple was destroyed, we were supposed to be in a state of mourning. To this very day, by the way, we're supposed to be in a state of mourning, because our joy, there's no greater joy than when the temple is there and we're giving sacrifices and we're all our kingdom is there. We're being ourselves. We're in our homeland, and that's it. There's no greater joy. So when the temple was destroyed, and as long as the temple is destroyed, we recognize that it is due to our sins. Yes, it's all our fault. Okay? It's all our fault. We have to understand it. It's all our fault. It wasn't that the Romans did something that they weren't supposed to do. God allowed them to destroy his temple, as the Malbim says, versus destroying his people. So he let the building go, but he kept us alive. And because we can always do tshuva, the building, what is a building without people? Right? A building is just an empty place. So God didn't just want to leave the building, he wanted us to do tshuva. So as long as the temple is destroyed, that's why we break a glass at a wedding. It's not just say Mazel Tov, it's a matter of remembering the destruction of the temple. That is why when we're painting our house, we leave a spot opposite the door on the wall that's unpainted. No, people don't really do that these days, but the reason for that was to say our joy is not complete. So we're not going to finish opposite the door. So you'd have that door. Yeah. So, well, it depends on which door you want to go off in this room. But above it, a tefach, which would be this much of a space. Okay, so whatever, 3 inches by 3 inches, or 3.5, whatever. So that's what you would leave unpainted.
Yeah, above the door frame.
Above the door frame.
Outside or the inside?
Well, when you're walking in to what you're going to see.
You mean so across the room? You mean?
Right. So what people do today is they put up a picture of Yerushalayim. They get a nice picture of Yerushalayim because somebody was a very smart businessman, and they got "Remember Jerusalem." They put it up there, and instead of not painting the wall, they put that up. Okay.
Yeah, what happens when you take the painting off? Is the wall painted underneath it?
Probably. But they didn't. But that's the way to remember. Remember, the whole point is to remember Yerushalayim and to remember the temple's destroyed. So you put something. Remember in the Korban. So, like I said, somebody made money off that. Everybody's a businessman in the end, and so.
In Texas, they remember the Alamo.
Remember the Alamo? Alimony, you said? Alamo. Right. Okay. But that's really and that's also, what else do? We do so much because, we're not supposed to listen to music. or we're not supposed to make music. There's a whole bunch of things that were taken away as time went on. But if you follow the decrees of the rabbis, then one is not in a happy mood.
Wow. Yeah.
Why? Because we're supposed to reflect. Why aren't we happy? Because we're not home.
That would be all the time.
All the time. All the time.
Wow.
Then what happened was it got reduced to this time period. Well, now it is over for most people, but of the Omer. But that wasn't for the destruction of the temple. That was because the 24,000 Jews people died. But during the 3 weeks, the 3 weeks that's dedicated to the destruction of the temple. So for 3 weeks we don't shave. Certainly 9 days. We're not eating meat. Meat is the highest. That's a luxury item, right? So that's why we don't eat it. It's not for any other reason. It's a luxury. So if I'm being luxurious while the temple's burning, what am I showing? You know, it's comparable to there's a Greek story of. Oh no, I forget. It's based on the Jewish story. Forget that. It's Simshon. When Samson is, remember what's his name? The muscle man. You know him from your days.
Victor Mature.
Victor Mature. Victor Mature has a chains around.
Charles Atlas.
Charles Atlas was Mr.
The
America.
movie.
The movie of Samson. So they have Samson. They tied him up to chains and it's pillars, and he prays to God. And he pulls it together and he kills all the people because the roof collapses, kills himself in the result. But that was a case of here they are rejoicing and everything else, and there are places collapsing, or the famous thing of while Rome burns, people are dancing, whatever the case was. Nero's fiddling. Okay, so that's what the rabbis were trying to avoid. That's what they were trying to build into the system, that we should not be happy, that we should always remember Yerushalayim. And that's why also, again, this has fallen into disuse, but people used to wait up for midnight, a Jewish midnight, not 12 o'clock p.m., but whatever midnight would be at that time of the year, and say prayers about the destruction of the temple, which we call Tikkun Chatzot. But the repair of the midnight.
Any night.
Every night. Every night people used to sit down. They used to put ashes on their head. Yeah. They used to sit down on the floor, just like Tisha B'Av, and they would recite. It's in the Sephardi Siddur that we have. So it's there, the whole Tikkun, and you would say it every night. And again, that would be a remembrance of the temple. There's even one very interesting story. We have, who was the author? The author was of the, not in this, he has something to do with the Shulchan Aruch. I forget which one it was. There was one of the people who writes on halacha. So he wanted to get his book published. They're talking about back in the old days. He wanted to get it when books cost a lot of money and people were reading books. But he wanted to get it published, and it wasn't being published, and he was about to give up. And then he had a dream. And so what happened was then he said, you know what? I'm going to sit down, I'm going to say Tikkun Chatzot. I haven't done it for a long time. He did that. And then he had a dream. And the Malachim came to him, the angel came to him and said, Hashem was waiting for you to say Tikkun Chatzot, because you used to say it all the time. Now you were so busy trying to get your book published, you forgot me. So now that you remembered me, the book will be published. And of course, published. And of course, the next day, somebody picked up the publishing contract, and it was done. Fine. It's one of those stories. But that is the power of remembering the main thing over the minor. You have to remember that we're not where we should be. And that's what the rabbis were trying to get. So that's why they're saying whatever is of pleasure, and in this case, if anointing yourself with balsam is pleasure, so that should be a lot, because you're not going to remember the temple. So Amalei Abaye, so Abaye is the Rav Yosef L'Taimech, but according to your reasoning that all activities listed in the verse should be forbidden, a high ketiv, but problem arises because from the following verse, which is written in the same verse, Hashotim V'Zukei Yayin, who drink out of bowls of wine, who drink out of bowls of wine. So Rav Ami and Rav Asi, Rav Ami and Rav Asi gave different interpretations of the phrase. Chad Amar Kanishkanen. One refers to a kanishkanen. What's a kanishkanen? A tall glass vessel with two spouts Two people could drink out of it simultaneously. Good. And one said it means that they threw their cups one to each other. So it means this was a skillful trick in which two people would juggle cups of wine between themselves. Both opinions interpret the phrase mizruke yayin to mean throwers of wine. The first opinion understands as noting it in a multi-spouted vessel in which wine would be thrown from one spout to the other. The second understands it as referring to juggling cups of wine. Either way, it would be a fun type of thing, right? So that's what you don't want to do.
It sounds like the bobble dance from Fiddler on the Roof.
Correct. Again, this frivolity. Therefore, here too, regarding each of these activities, you should say that's forbidden, because that is included in the verse. But this is not true. Why? Because we have a case where Rabba Bar Rahuna visited the house of the exilarch, Vishata b'Kinishkinen, and the exile was drinking out of Kinishkinen. Either way, either it's juggling or the two straws in the cup. Either way. But Rav Huna did not say anything to him by way of rebuke. Thus we see that not everything listed in the verse is prohibited. So he said, Rav Yehuda is therefore justified in explaining the phrase, they anoint themselves with the finest of oils, referring to balsam, although balsam was not later forbidden as a luxury. So Abaye concludes, and he says, the criteria for prohibition are as follows. Kol midi de'it bei tanug, everything that involves pleasure. Ve'it bei simcha, and also involves joy. Gazur Rabbanan, thou and the rabbis decreed against its use. About midi de'it bei tanug, but something that involves only pleasure. V'leit ba simcha, and does not involve joy, lo gazur Rabbanan, but the rabbis did not decree against the use. So he says, before you ask, in 22, he says, tanug, pleasure denotes sensual gratification, simcha signifies gaiety and jubilation. The rabbis banned only those activities that inspire both of these emotions. Hence, the activities listed in the verse in Amos, which involves pleasure but not necessarily joy. For example, balsam oil are not all prohibited. The use of Kinishkanin, too, was not prohibited because its use was primarily to enhance the pleasure of the drinking of the wine. Why juggling the wine, or why using two straws, if you will, would make that happier? I don't know. Unless you're with your, like in the movies with the girlfriends, when you have, you drink, it shows closeness. Yeah.
At first, I wanted you to repeat only in English what you just said, in other words, differentiating between the pleasure without joy and it being decreed against its use or something.
Right.
Summarize that.
Okay, so what Abaye is saying, Abaye is a person, the rabbi. What Abaye is saying is, if it has both elements, if the act has both elements of sensual pleasure and joy, two different things, then that's what the rabbis forbade. But if it's only sensual pleasure or it's only joy, that the rabbis did not forbade as a way to remember the temple.
Why would joy not bring pleasure? And how far that?
Sensual pleasure.
What was considered a legitimate use of balsam?
To anoint yourself, that's all. To anoint oneself. So that would only be sensual pleasure. That wouldn't be joy. I put hand cream on myself because I want my hands to be soft or whatever the case is, okay? But that's not a joy. It makes my hands feel better. It's not a joy. It's a sensual pleasure. As opposed to I listen to country music. That's a joy, but it's not a sensual pleasure. I don't get any sensory pleasure from that. That would be the difference.
So joy is like an more internal thing.
Internal, yeah. So internal versus, he says, gaiety and jubilation. So that's a feeling. It evokes a feeling. And of course, the exact opposite. If I were listening to rap, that elicits disgust. No, I'm serious. I don't like rap. If I listen to heavy metal, that just evokes a headache.
Yeah, noise.
It's noise. I don't get it. I never understood what people liked about it. The only reason I don't like rap, by the way, is because of what they've done with it. I don't mind the mode of music, but the words that they use are disgusting. So that I can't abide by.
The stories that they tell are tragic.
I could never. The truth is, I could never get past their language to hear that. Their language is totally disgusting to me. I just couldn't take it.
But the sadder part is if you get past it and you listen, the lives that they're describing.
Okay, I won't argue that, but it's again, I never could get past that because, and I think that their audience obviously likes it. I mean, there are people who will listen to rap like rap, people who listen to heavy metal like heavy metal, and I'm sure there's stories with all of them, including, of course, country. There is a story there. And it's not just my dog ate I lost my dog, I lost my truck, but I got my fish, that sort of thing. It's not that. They have some really touching stories. They're all, every song tells a story. Even the Temptations from the 1970s, Smiling Faces, right? If you can go back to that, remember the song, Smiling Faces? They don't tell the truth. Smile is just a frown turned upside down, blah, blah, blah. Okay, there's a lot of truth to what the Temptations are saying. And again, but they're saying it nicely. The problem is their introduction was ridiculously long. 9 minutes, that was the days of 9-minute songs. It was like, wow. Okay, but that's what's going on. So some of them give you joy, and some of them give you sensual pleasure. And so if they do both, that's what Abaye said, that's what the rabbis made a decree against. And therefore, balsam would not be part of that decree. Okay. So now it says, "Shokfen al mitod shein usruchem al arsotam." So who lie upon beds of ivory, stretched out on their couches. He said that's from the book of Amos. And so Amar Rav Yossi barav Chanina malatmei shayim mashtinin mayim fnei mitotehen arumhem. This verses teaches that they would urinate before their beds while naked. So he says that is, if they needed to urinate while they were still in their beds, they would not bother to get undressed and go outside. Instead, they would urinate onto the floor next to their beds. And, okay, there you go. So that's what they would do. And so, this interpretation is rejected and a different one proposed. Magadev ba Rav Abahu scoffed at, saying, "Ihachi hainu dichsiv." If so, there's a difficulty with that which is written in the following verse, which is again, "L'chein ata yiglu barosh golem." Therefore, now they shall go into exile at the head of the exiles. Mishum shmashtinim mayim b'fnei matatein arumim. Now can you say that because they urinate before the beds while naked, Yiglu Rosh Golem, they will go into exile at the head of the exiles? And so our scroll gives you the whole verse. He says the entire verse reads, L'chein ata Yiglu Barosh Golem, V'sar Mizrach Seruchem. Therefore now they shall go into exile at the head of the exiles, and the revelry of those who stretch themselves out shall pass away. The word Seruchem, those who stretch themselves out, refers back to the phrase above, Usruchem al arsotam, stretched out on their beds. While which Rav Yossi interpreted as referring to urinating before one's bed, this verse implies that the punishment of exile is particularly appropriate for those engaged in this act. So then he says, clearly this punishment is too severe for such an act. Ela Amar Rav Abahu, so Rav Abahu said, Elu b'nei Adam shayu ochlem v'shotem zeh im zeh. These are people who eat and drink with each other, v'dovkin mitotean zubezu, and attach their beds one to another, machalifin neshotem zeh im zeh, and exchange their wives with one another, umasrichen arsotam v'shichvat zera she'ena shalahem, and defile their couches with semen that is not theirs. So he says, those who engaged in this behavior were indeed deserving of going into exile before anyone else. So bright decided above, for this sin of forbidden sexual relations, exile comes to the world. Okay, fine. So that is another. So either they urinate in front of their beds, and that would have been another part of that verse. And by the way, you could also look at it like this. Besides being gross, it could also be that they were too lazy to get their bedpan or something. That they were defied. Here they were so rich they didn't want to go out or whatever the case was. This was their luxury to pitch in the house. Okay.
I'm wondering the context of this, how we got from the prohibited use of balsam to this business. Okay.
Because we're talking about the verse. The verse is in Amos. That's what we're talking about. So we're looking at the verses of Amos and we're translating that. So that is the common theme of this. There's no other, that doesn't have to be another connection.
Does this include that verse? Does the Hebrew side of the page include that verse?
Yeah, you're seeing, your Hebrew is, you're seeing the Hebrew we have. It's just broken up differently.
All right.
Okay? But that's using. So now we go, since we talked about urination, so now we're going to add some of his beds. So now the Gemara states the punishment for urinating before one's bed. So I'm a Rabbi Bau again, and since Rabbi Bau said the last time, we'll continue on what he said. Another reason, that's again how the oral tradition works. Since we're in a topic, we discussed this topic, and certainly if the rabbi who said something previously, he said something else in that same topic, we're going to keep saying that. We're going to keep following because that's how oral tradition works. Not only did he say this, but he said this on the same subject even. Okay, so. It says, and some said the Tana taught in the bright time, three things brings a person to poverty, and these are they: urinating before one's bed naked. And again, he explains in 29, the Gemara Pesachim states that the angel of poverty is called Naval, which connotes repulsiveness. This means that poverty is occasioned by repulsive behavior, such as urinating before one's bed. That's Rashi's explanation. The Gemara specifies naked only because this is a typical circumstance. When a person is lying in bed naked, he would urinate next to his bed rather than go to the trouble of getting dressed and going outside. However, the same applies to when he urinates before his bed while clothed. According to this reasoning, a bed is also mentioned because it is the most common example. Indeed, urinating any place where it is repulsive, such as next to one's table, would also cause poverty. Well, again,
he's talking about going into a container, I take it. You said before, yeah?
No, it could be a ground.
Remember,
you have dirt floors. You have dirt floors.
Not every place had mosaics on the floor.
Right. Yeah, you have dirt floors, so, okay, I need to go. I'll go pishy here. I'll cover it up. And that sort of thing. Because I don't want to go out to the outhouse to get up.
Wow.
I thought this book dealt with the meaning of life and all these wonderful, lofty ideals here.
The answer is that the Talmud it talks about everything, because everything is holy. It's what we make it. That's all. Everything, like I always like to say, every single thing in this world is parv. It's neither one way or the other. Everything is parv. We have the opportunity to infuse it with holiness, or we have the power to infuse it with making it disgusting.
He's equating poverty with severe disrespect.
Correct. And what
disrespect?
Right. So now you have to ask, that's only one of them, by the way. But the first thing is disrespect. But the bottom line is that God wants us to be a holy nation. And God gave us Israel as a down payment, if you will, for us being a holy nation. If we act like the other nations, we no longer are holy. We become like that. So then Hashem says, so my land isn't fit for you. And if that's the case, you need to leave. You need to leave. because you did this, or you did this, whatever the three things are going to be. So number one is you urinated in the place you shouldn't have urinated because you're too lazy to get up out of your bed to go to your. It's not that you couldn't; you're just too lazy. So you figure, let's go on the ground, whatever. Somebody else will clean it up. Who cares? Either it's dirt floors or it could be wooden floors. It gets absorbed. Even if it's mosaics, so their maid will come in, or my wife will come in, or I'll take care of it later. Whatever the case is going to be, who cares? I don't. It's also from God. God knows, made me defecate. You could argue that too, right? So that sort of thing. Is it repulsive? It's repulsive. You shouldn't be doing it because we're supposed to be holy. That's why we have a commandment. It's not a Boy Scout rule. It's a commandment that if I'm in the woods or wherever I am, I'm supposed to have a shovel with me. So when I have to defecate, I put in I dig a hole. Dig a latrine, right?
Yeah.
You dig a hole. You do your business, then you cover it. Nobody else does that. Unless you're a Boy Scout. But nobody else does that. Everybody else would just go, okay, I have to go, pull down your pants and go in somebody's bushes, pull a bush, as they used to say, and have a good day. And that's wrong. It's disgusting. And so the Torah says, if you do that, you'll be poor, because you're disgusting. Okay, then the second one is Umazalzel ben Tzidayim, and treating the mitzvah of washing one's hands lightly. In other words, you don't do it. And it says it's a rabbinic obligation to wash one's hands in a certain manner before eating a meal. Now, this is, by the way, this also has an interesting halacha. Let's say I'm eating, want to bring you lunch, but I know that you don't wash your hands before eating bread. I'm not allowed to bring you bread because I'm putting a stumbling block in your face, or you're against it, whatever the case is going to be. So by me doing that, I'm bringing it's still putting a stumbling block in your face because you're not going to do it. So therefore, if you're not going to wash, or if I know you're not going to bench, never mind saying a bracha beforehand, but if I know you're not going to want to say the grace after meals, I'm not supposed to feed you. Not supposed to invite you. Sit. Okay. Now the interesting thing again is, since we started with kiruv, I'll basically end with that. If a person is not religious and they don't know anything about it, they're not in this category. We're talking about a person who knows and rejects. In all cases, the person has to know and reject. If we're talking about a person who doesn't know anything about it, so then there's only to reject. Then that person doesn't fall into that category, which is why if a person is driving on Shabbat because they don't know what's wrong, or they know that you don't drive, they know I don't drive, but they drive because they don't think it's wrong. Okay, there's nothing they even think it's wrong. So I can invite them to my house for Shabbat, and I don't have to worry about how they get there. On the other hand, if I know the person knows that it's wrong, and is going to do it anyway because he doesn't care that it's wrong, he knows it's wrong. He's brought up religious, but he knows it. I'm not allowed to invite him.
Here's a couple of examples for you. I'm going to have to go after this.
Let me just finish one thing then. Let me just finish the Gemara, and then you can tell me. And the last thing is she'ishto mekalkalto bifanav, and being cursed by one's wife in one's own presence. If you got your wife to be able to so angry that she's going to curse you in your presence, guess what? That's not good, because we're supposed to take care of our wives. We're supposed to love them.
If he's banished, where does she go?
No, poor. There's poor. They're going to be
we're past
poverty.
the exile business?
Yeah, the exile was before. But this is what you get for urinating before, either urination, or you don't wash your hands properly, or your wife is cursing you in your presence. That means you're not going to have money. You're going to lose money. Now, again, the reason is if you it's going to explain it, so I'll have to wait. But it's if you get your wife that angry at you, you're in big trouble. Okay, yeah. You're going to ask.